Good morning friends, welcome back to Panika Tutorials. In this video, I want to discuss one of the gate question which came in the year 2015 related to recursive function. So I request everyone to watch the complete video for better understanding. First let me read out the question, then I will discuss the solution with you. Void get is the function and the return type is void. So this function does not return any value and get is a user defined function. It takes one parameter which is an integer. Okay. Now if n is less than 1, you have to execute the return statement. Otherwise you need to call the get n minus 1. Meaning is that again you need to call the get function. So the function is calling itself. So that's why we are calling it as a recursive function, and the technique we will call it as a recursion. Okay, so the function is calling itself, but now the input is changing. When it was previously n, now it is calling with input as n minus 1, then get n minus 3. So again it is calling itself, and finally it is printing the n value. This is what the pseudocode they have given. If get 6, meaning is that get function with input 6, function is called in main function. So what they are telling is that in a main function, let me write that point also, you have a void main. Okay, inside this function somewhere you have a statement called get with value 6. This is the statement is there. So this is the function calling for this function called get. Okay, and they have closed the main function. Remaining statements I does not bother. Somewhere in the main function you have a function called get with value 6. So this is the function calling for this function called get. Okay, then how many times the get function will be invoked before coming back to the main function? And they have given the 4 options such as a is equal to 15, b is equal to 25, c is equal to 35, d is equal to 45. So we need to solve this question and find out what is the right answer. Okay, so now from the main function, first you call the function called get with input as 6. Okay, so you call, so it will go to the function definition. Now what is the n value will be assigned, means to the variable n what value will be assigned. As you are giving the input as 6, the constant 6 will be assigned to the variable n. Okay, now you need to check if this condition is true, you need to execute the statement. What is the condition here? N less than 1. What is the n value? 6. 6 is less than 1. No, 6 is greater than 1. So this condition is failed. If this condition is failed, you no need to execute the statement. You need to execute this one. So get n minus 1. So again you are calling that function with value as n minus 1. What is the n value? 6. 6 minus 1 is nothing but you are calling the function called get 5. So get is the function with input as 5. So now the value 5 will be assigned to the variable n. Is it clear? Now again you check it. N is less than 1. No, 5 is not less than 1. So again you need to execute the statement get n minus 1. So which will be get 4. Now the value 4 will be assigned to this variable n. Okay. Again 4 is greater than 1. 4 is not less than 1. Again this condition is failed. So again you need to execute this function called get n minus 1. So which will be called as get with value 3. So now the value of n is 3. Will you agree with me? Now again look at it. N is less than 1. 3 is less than 1. No, 3 is greater than 1. So again this condition is failed. Again you will execute the statement called get n minus 1. So you are calling the get function again with input as 2. So n value will be updated to 2. Okay, again 2 is not less than 1. So again this condition is failed. So again you will execute the statement called get n minus 1. So you are calling the get function with input as 1. So now the n value is 1 here. Okay, now again 1 is equal to 1. 1 is not less than 1. Again the condition is failed. So you are calling this get function with input as 0 because 1 minus 1 is 0. Are you able to understand it or not? Okay, so again the function definition is called get function with input as 0 now. Now the n value is 0. Look at it. If n is less than 1 or not, we need to check. 0 is less than 1. Yes, the condition is true. If this condition is true, you need to return. Okay, means from this one, you need to go back to this function called get 1, because from this function you reach to the get 0. This function is called the get 0 function. If you are returning, you need to return to this function call. Okay, now look at here. In this function call, get n minus 1 is executed. Now get n minus 3 need to be executed. Look at here. Get 6 is called get n minus 1. Get 5 is called get 4. Get 3, get 2, get 1, get 0. But this is the one statement. But none of the function call you did not execute this statement too, because every time it is calling get n minus 1. Once it is written back, once this one is done, you need to call the get n minus 3. So this get 1 will call get n minus 3. If it is get 1, what will be the n value? N value will be 1. So n minus 3 will be 1 minus 3, which is minus 2. Will you agree with me or not? Okay, and even it is an int, by default it is a signed int, so it will accept the negative numbers also. So now it is calling get minus 2. Okay, now the n value will be equal to minus 2. Are you able to understand it or not? Now look at n is less than 1 or not. What is the n value? Minus 2. Minus 2 is less than 1? Yes, condition is true. If the condition is true, you need to return. How you need to return? From this one, you need to return back to get 1. Now, once it is done, it will print the n value. What will be the n value now? N value is what? Minus 2 will be printed. Is it clear? Are you able to understand it or not? Because after this one, you need to print it. But we are not worrying about how many times this printf is executing. They asked that how many times the get function is invoked. So I will not worry about the printf statement. Once it is come back here, look at here. You are here. Are you able to understand it or not? If you are here, you have done this one and this one. So you will go back. So this part you will come. Now get 2, you will be written. Now look at here. Now get 2 was here. Once it is done, now you need to do the get n minus 3. What will be the n value that time? N value is equal to 2. When that function is called, that n value is 2. So n minus 3. So it will call the get minus 1. Are you able to understand it or not? Now again this condition is true. Now the n value is minus 1. Are you able to understand it or not? Okay. Now if it is minus 1, again this condition is true. So it will return. Where it will return? It will return to this part, get 2. So at get 2, you have executed get n minus 1 and get n minus 3. Once it is done, you will reach to the get 3. Okay. Are you able to understand it or not? Now get 3, what will happen? Get 3 will do the get n minus 1, it is done. Now it has to do get n minus 3, which is nothing but 3 minus 3, which is get 0. Are you able to understand it or not? Again the n value is equal to 0. Get 0. Are you able to understand it or not? If n value is 0, again this condition will be failed. Are you able to understand it or not? 0 less than 1 is condition is fail or false. Is it failed or not failed? It is condition is true because n value is 0. So 0 less than 1, the condition is true. If this condition is true, it will return. Are you able to understand? If it returns, meaning is that get n minus 1 is done, n minus 3 is done, you need to return back to the get 4. Okay, so now get 4, you are done the get n minus 1. Now you need to do the get n minus 3 function call, which is nothing but 4 minus 3, which is nothing but get 1. Now look at n value is equal to 1 because this function is called with input called 1. So value 1 will be assigned to the variable n. Now 1 is less than 1. This condition is failed now. 1 is equal to 1, 1 is not less than 1. If this condition is failed, again you will call the get n minus 1, which is nothing but you are calling get 0 here, okay, and then get 0. Again the n value will be 0, okay. Are you able to understand? 0 less than 1, the condition is true. So you will return here, and then it will call get n minus 3, which is nothing but get minus 2. If you are confused, the get 1, how many times the get function is called? When the get 1 is there, how many times this function is called? 2 times. So you can write here plus 2. Obviously I have written why it is plus 2. It is calling again get 0 and get minus 2. So you can write it as get 1 will call this function again for 2 times. So you write plus 1. Okay. So get n minus 3 is done. So again the control will go to the get 5 because once it is done, it has to go back here. Now n minus 1 is done because that's why the get 4 is called. Now get n minus 3 has to be done, which is nothing but get 2. Now the n value will be equal to 2. Now look at here, when the n value is 2, what will happen? The condition will be failed. So you will call the get 1 function. Then get 1 function will call the get 0. So when the get 2 was there, how many times this get function is called? 1, 2, 3, 4. So again it will call the get function for 4 times. Are you able to understand it or not? Once it is done, it will go to the get 6. Okay. Now at the get 6, you have called the get n minus 1. That's why it was get 5. Now it has to call the get n minus 3, which is nothing but 6 minus 3, which is equal to get 3. So this function will call get 3. Are you able to understand it or not? Why I am writing like this is that get function with a value 6 has called the get n minus 1 and get n minus 3. Get 5 has called get 4 and get 2. Like that I have written here. Are you able to understand? Now look at here. When the get function with value input is equal to 3, how many times the get function is invoked? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it is calling again 6 times the get function. Is it clear? Again you no need to execute. Is it clear? You have the how many times the get function will be called if the input is equal to 3. You know it. Now count how many times this get function is invoked, because once the get 3 execute the get function for 6 times, it will return to the main function. Am I right? That is what they are asking. How many times the get function will be invoked before returning to the main function. So you need to count how many times it is calling. Now this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, now 11, 11 plus 2, which is 13, okay, 14, 14 plus 4, which is 18. Are you able to understand? 19, 19 plus 6, 25 times this function is calling. Okay, are you able to understand it or not? That's why it is recursion. So that's why they are asking how many times the recursion will happen. It is 25. So the option is B is the correct option. Option A, C and D are wrong. For this question, option B is correct. I hope you have understood how I solved this question. If you still have any doubts related to this question, feel free to contact me in the comment section. I will try to clear your doubts as early as possible. Thank you for watching the complete video. Have a nice day.